Hi there, Dave Rawlings here, and I've got another sword review for you today. Now, to begin with, here is the Albion Yeoman, and this is really for size comparison. Now, people generally say this is a wonderful sword for 133. It is sharp, but for understanding the length of the sword in 133, understanding the handling, this kind of thing. What I would say with that is, to be honest, it is a wonderful sword. It's beautiful. It's one of my favourites. But the idea of this being a perfect proportion for 133 is bollocks. Swords in 133 proportionally to the figures within 133 vary quite a lot, so don't get hung up on that. Do experiment with different lengths of swords against swords of different length, because I think this is how you'll understand your fencing an awful lot better. That said, it is a beautiful sword. I'm very, very happy to own it. Albion has always have done a wonderful job. I really should do a review of it, however I'm not going to yet. The sword I want to show you today is made by Matthew, and I apologise if I'm murdering your name. I will get it right in time. I'll keep on practising, and you can say, no, it's like this, and it will get better. Now, he goes by the name of SwordMaker, and he made my falchion, which there's a review of on this channel as well. Absolutely lovely piece of kit. Now, this is a very, very interesting piece because it's based on a 13th century sculpture of an 11th century gentleman. So the sword is contemporary to that sculpture. Being a sculpture, we can't see the blade, so he's mainly looked at the scabbard and he's looked at the hilt and this kind of thing, but then he's taken it off and he's compared it to different kinds of swords of the period of a similar design, and he's tried to come to some assumptions. I'm not going to talk too much about the scabbard. There is a lot more detail on his website. Simply, I'm going to say that it's a wooden core, fits very well. The leather work is simple. The seam is finished very, very flat. As you can see, there's no bulbing here. This is quite excellently done. Shape, simple, practical, and again, copied for the statue. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. I'm going to go straight to the sword. This is going to be a quick review, and I hope you understand why as we go through. So, working our way up. From here, pommel, pintang, smoothly finished, got tool marks, still very, very nice. I like a little bit of tool mark on my swords. Brass pommel, quite excellent. Crossguard. Now, the finish on this looks like it is hand done because it's not fully symmetrical. There is differences on the lines on this. You'd expect this, it's handmade, perfectly all right with that. So there'll be one side will be slightly thicker than another, for example, here on one of the facets. It is hexagonal, roughly. And again, if you look at the edges, the ends of this, if you can see, they are not completely symmetrical. And again, I do not have a problem with this. I'm pointing it out so that I can be as critical as possible. The leather work here is very good. There are a couple of points of bleed, but generally quite excellent and very nicely finished. Doesn't feel like there's any play in there. And there's no obvious joins. The join is on the edge here. You can just about see it. It's incredibly nicely done. A very subtle fix on that. So, yep, leather works very, very good. And the blade. Now, the point I'll make with the blade is, first of all, I don't particularly want to do this because you can feel that this bastard wants to cut. And that's great. It is a nasty feeling sword. Yeoman is sharp. Doesn't have the same kind of feel to it. Now, obviously that is partly to do with the different blade design, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with this in the slightest, it's just an observation. Now, the fullering on the blade here is one of the inconsistencies that I have noticed. So, the fuller itself is very, very straight, but it doesn't rest quite evenly to left or right. Again, I don't have a problem with this. The observation is there so that we can see it. The fuller itself, as I say, very, very straight, and this is the same on both sides. It is straight and very, very nice. The depth is very, very even, but if you can see that, without too much glare, again, it's more to one side than the other. Doesn't affect the handling at all. I don't feel the sword pulls in any way. It's very, very nicely balanced. The blade is very, very nice and straight. This is good. The sharpening on this is absolutely wonderful, I have to say. It's very, very consistent. The only point that there's really a noticeable difference is right next to the hilt here. It's slightly more sharp on one side than the other. I'm not planning on cutting people this. The only person I'm cutting this close to the hilt is me. So I haven't got an issue with this in the slightest. It is very, very good, consistent in its sharpening all the way to the end, and a good smooth movement to the point. So very, very, very happy with this. So in closing, there's not much else to say about this. There's a little observation I'll make, but first of all, some measurements. Now, overall, this is 1030mm. The blade length is 885 millimeters, with a grip length of 90 millimeters, a blade width of 47 millimeters. The cross is 205 millimeters. The balance is about 150 millimeters out. The thickness at the base is 5 millimeters, and then up here is about 3 millimeters. Now, it's incredibly simple. It's very well and simply finished. I love it for that. It's not whistles and bells, as I said. It's a good, clean, functional sword. Quite murderous in its feel. It's wonderful. What I would say about this is I had the pleasure of taking this to 2 days of the blade earlier in the year. And one of the things about that gave me an interesting insight is I picked this sword up and I had a specific feel about it. Now, the maker says very, very clearly that he feels it's a cavalry sword, and I do not disagree with him. This is not to say I disagree, but there's an interesting observation is that usually with a lot of the swords that I have and that people get to try, people will start swinging the swords around their heads, taking them through various different permutations of cuts and this kind of thing. In this case, everybody who picked this sword up held the sword, moved it around, didn't start swinging it through moulinets or anything like this. They just went, And the reason is that feels right. Now that puts it in an interesting position as far as something like maybe 133 is concerned, because it makes you want to hold it forward. It doesn't make you want to take it through large swings. It's not balanced for that. And again, this isn't to say it's not a cavalry sword. It's an interesting observation that this lends itself to a 133 style of fencing. You want to hold it like so. You want to hold it like so. It's comfortable to do so. So this is just an interesting aside, and it's an observation which really gives you the benefit and makes me so grateful that we have people who are going around and taking these historical measurements and these historical balances for these swords. So a very beautiful, simple piece. Again, thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed it. Do check out SwordMaker's website. I'll put the link below. One of my favourite smiths. Beautiful sword as usual. Take care.